In a packed courtroom, a Wall Street lawyer worth millions called Judge Judy a poor judge and threatened to destroy her career. But what happened next shocked the entire legal world. Judge Judy made one phone call that didn't just freeze his assets. It exposed a $50 million fraud scheme that sent him to federal prison for 15 years. But here's what nobody knows. This wasn't just about one arrogant lawyer. This was about Judge Judy's secret connection to the most powerful people in Washington. A connection so deep that with just one word, she could make billionaires disappear. This moment went viral for all the wrong reasons. And what I'm about to reveal will change everything you think you know about Judge Judy. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The Manhattan courthouse was buzzing with energy. News vans lined the streets outside. Cameras flashed through every window and reporters whispered frantically into their phones. This wasn't just any case. This was the trial that Wall Street had been dreading for months. Inside courtroom 4B, the air was thick with tension. Rows of expensive suits filled every seat, each one representing millions of dollars in legal fees. At the defendant's table sat Marcus Wellington III, senior partner of Wellington, Cross & Associates, one of the most feared law firms on the East Coast. His $8,000 Italian suit was perfectly pressed. His $50,000 Rolex caught the courtroom lights, and his confidence filled the room like poison gas. On the bench sat Judge Judy Scheindlin, calm, focused, her piercing eyes scanning the room with the precision of a hawk hunting prey. She had seen thousands of cases, destroyed hundreds of liars, and built a reputation that made grown men tremble. But Marcus Wellington thought he was different. He thought his money, his connections, his Ivy League education made him untouchable. He was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. The bailiff called the court to order, and the battle that would destroy a legal empire was about to begin. What nobody in that courtroom knew was that Judge Judy had been waiting for this moment for over a decade, and the phone call she was about to make would unleash forces that Marcus Wellington never saw coming. Before we dive into this incredible takedown that ended with FBI raids and frozen bank accounts, smash that like button if you love seeing arrogant lawyers get what they deserve, and subscribe because what Judge Judy did next will blow your mind. And I guarantee you've never seen justice served this brutally before. Marcus Wellington III wasn't just any lawyer. He was legal royalty. His grandfather founded the firm in 1952. His father expanded it into a billion-dollar empire, and Marcus had spent the last 20 years crushing anyone who dared challenge him. He owned judges, bought senators, and had the attorney general on speed dial. In his mind, Judge Judy was nothing more than a TV celebrity playing dress-up in a real courtroom. He was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. The case was worth $200 million. Wellington's client, a cryptocurrency mogul, was accused of laundering money through offshore accounts. It should have been simple. Pay the fine, seal the records, business as usual. But Judge Judy had other plans. She started asking questions that made Wellington's blood pressure spike. Questions about missing funds, forged documents, and payments to foreign officials. Questions that no TV judge should know to ask. Wellington stood up, his voice dripping with condescension. Your Honor, I have to question whether this court has the expertise to handle such a complex financial matter. Perhaps we should consider transferring this case to a judge with more appropriate qualifications. The courtroom fell silent. Even the stenographer stopped typing. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Wellington took her silence as weakness. Fatal mistake. He pressed on, his arrogance growing with each word. With all due respect, Your Honor, you've built your career on small claims and petty disputes. This case involves sophisticated international banking laws, cryptocurrency regulations, and federal securities violations. These are matters that require a judge with real legal experience, not television experience. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Reporters' fingers flew across their keyboards. The gallery buzzed with shocked whispers. But Wellington wasn't finished. He had spent years humiliating judges, and he wasn't about to stop now. Your Honor, my client deserves better than a poor judge who got famous yelling at deadbeat tenants. This case requires someone who understands real law, not courtroom theater. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Court officers shifted uncomfortably. The prosecution team looked stunned. Even Wellington's own associates seemed embarrassed. Judge Judy sat perfectly still, her hands folded, her face unreadable. But those who knew her could see the storm building behind her eyes. She had been underestimated before, but never insulted so publicly, so arrogantly. Wellington mistook her silence for surrender. He straightened his tie, adjusted his cufflinks, and prepared to deliver his final blow. Perhaps it's time for Your Honor to return to television, where the cases are fake and the consequences don't matter. The courtroom erupted. Some gasped in shock, others booed loudly, but Judge Judy remained calm, almost peaceful. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out her phone. Wellington had no idea that this single action would destroy everything he had ever built, expose crimes spanning 3 decades, and send shockwaves through the highest levels of government. The poor judge was about to show him what real power looked like. The courtroom fell into a silence so deep you could hear hearts beating. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop humming. Judge Judy sat motionless, her phone in her hand, her eyes fixed on Marcus Wellington with the intensity of a laser beam. For 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody dared to make a sound. Wellington thought he had won. He had no idea he had just signed his own death warrant. What Marcus Wellington didn't know was that Judge Judy Scheindlin wasn't just a TV judge. Before her television career, she had spent 15 years as a family court judge in Manhattan, handling cases that involved some of the most dangerous criminals in New York. She had seen drug dealers, human traffickers, and money launderers try every trick in the book. More importantly, she had built relationships with federal agents, prosecutors, and intelligence officials who owed her favors. Big favors. During her years on the bench, Judge Judy had helped the FBI crack 3 major organized crime families. She had assisted the DEA in bringing down a $2 billion drug operation. She had worked with the Treasury Department to expose corruption that reached the highest levels of Wall Street. And every single one of those cases had taught her that real power wasn't about money or connections. Real power was about knowing where the bodies were buried. Judge Judy slowly lifted her phone, her movements deliberate and precise. The courtroom watched in fascination as she scrolled through her contacts, stopping at a number that made her lips curve into the faintest smile. Wellington shifted nervously in his chair, finally sensing that something was very wrong. His associates leaned forward, trying to see what was happening. The prosecution team held their breath. But here's what nobody in that courtroom knew. The number Judge Judy was about to dial belonged to Deputy Director Sarah Chen of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, a woman who had been tracking Marcus Wellington for over 5 years. Chen had been building a case against Wellington's firm, collecting evidence of money laundering, tax evasion, and client fund theft. But she needed a trigger, something that would give her legal justification to move forward. Judge Judy was about to hand her that trigger on a silver platter. Judge Judy's finger hovered over the call button. Wellington's face was starting to turn pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. The court reporter's hands trembled over her keyboard. The gallery leaned forward as one, sensing that they were about to witness something historic. Something that would be talked about in law schools for decades. Then Judge Judy pressed call. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a voice answered that would change Marcus Wellington's life forever. Deputy Director Chen, this is Judge Judy Scheindlin. I have a situation here that requires your immediate attention. We have a problem and I think you're going to want to hear this. Deputy Director Sarah Chen's voice came through crystal clear, and Judge Judy didn't waste a second. Sarah, I'm sitting in my courtroom with Marcus Wellington III, and he just made a very interesting statement about my qualifications. I think it's time we discuss those Panama Papers documents you've been holding. The color drained from Wellington's face like water from a broken dam. He knew that name. Everyone in high-stakes finance knew that name. The Panama Papers had destroyed careers, toppled governments, and sent billionaires to prison. But his name wasn't supposed to be in there. Judge Judy continued, her voice calm but deadly. Marcus seems to think I'm just a poor TV judge who doesn't understand real law. Perhaps you could help educate him about the $847 million. His firm moved through 17 different shell companies between 2019 and 2023. Wellington's hands began to shake. His mouth opened but no words came out. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. His associates stared at him with growing horror. Finally understanding that their boss wasn't just in trouble, he was finished. Oh, and Sarah, Judge Judy added, her eyes never leaving Wellington's terrified face. He mentioned that this case requires someone who understands international banking laws. I'm sure the Treasury Department would be fascinated to learn about those cryptocurrency transactions his client routed through North Korean exchanges last month. Wellington's $8,000 suit was now soaked with sweat. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't support him. One of his junior partners whispered frantically into his phone, probably calling their malpractice insurance company. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She had been building this moment for years, and she was going to savor every second. There's something else, Sarah. Mr. Wellington just questioned whether I have the expertise to handle complex financial matters. I think the SEC would be very interested in those insider trading alerts from his personal accounts, especially the Tesla shorts he placed 3 days before that factory explosion in Shanghai. The prosecution team exchanged shocked glances. They had come here for a simple money laundering case. They had stumbled into something that would make international headlines. Wellington finally found his voice, but it came out as a strangled whisper. Your Honor, I think there's been some misunderstanding. Judge Judy held up one finger, silencing him instantly. Deputy Director Chen's voice filled the courtroom through the speakerphone. Judge Scheindlin, we've been waiting for the right moment to move on this. Consider the warrant signed. We'll have teams at his offices, his homes, and his offshore accounts within the hour. The courtroom erupted. Reporters frantically typed on their phones. The gallery buzzed with excited whispers. Wellington's associates were already gathering their things, distancing themselves from the radioactive disaster their boss had become. Security guards moved closer, sensing that an arrest was imminent. Wellington looked around desperately, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Judge Judy ended the call and set her phone down with theatrical precision. She looked at Wellington, who was now visibly trembling, and smiled for the first time all day. Mr. Wellington, you called me a poor judge who doesn't understand real law. Allow me to show you exactly how much this poor judge understands. Outside the courthouse, black SUVs were already pulling up to the curb. Inside those SUVs were federal agents with handcuffs, search warrants, and 15 years' worth of evidence that would destroy everything Marcus Wellington had ever built. Within minutes, Marcus Wellington's phone started buzzing like an angry hornet. The first call was from his bank. Mr. Wellington, your accounts have been frozen by federal order. All credit lines are suspended immediately. His face went white as bone. The second call was from his firm's managing partner. Marcus, the FBI is in our lobby with search warrants. They're seizing everything. You're suspended effective immediately. His hands shook so violently he could barely hold the phone. But the calls kept coming. His personal banker, his investment advisor, his country club, his children's private school. One by one, every pillar of his privileged life was crumbling in real time. His Rolex, his cars, his Manhattan penthouse, his Hampton estate, all frozen, all untouchable. The man who had walked into court worth $200 million was now financially radioactive. Judge Judy watched it all with the satisfaction of a chess master delivering checkmate. Wellington tried to speak, his voice cracking like a teenager. Your Honor, please, I apologize for my comments. I was out of line. Perhaps we can discuss. Judge Judy's laugh cut through his pathetic begging like a knife through paper. Mr. Wellington, 20 minutes ago you thought I was too poor and too stupid to understand your case. Now you want to negotiate? The time for talking is over. The courtroom doors burst open. Federal agents in dark suits flooded in, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The lead agent approached Wellington's table with handcuffs already in his hands. Marcus Wellington III, you're under arrest for money laundering, tax evasion, securities fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial terrorism. The Miranda rights echoed through the silent courtroom as Wellington's $8,000 suit was no match for steel handcuffs. His associates scattered like cockroaches when the lights come on. 20 years of friendship and partnership meant nothing when federal charges were flying. His junior partners were already on their phones with criminal defense attorneys. His secretary was deleting files. His clients were transferring their accounts to safer firms. The Wellington legal empire was collapsing faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. As the agents led him away, Wellington turned back to Judge Judy with tears streaming down his face. Please, Your Honor, I have a family. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Judge Judy stood up slowly, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Mr. Wellington, you didn't make a mistake. You revealed who you really are, and now the whole world knows. The courtroom erupted in applause. People stood and cheered as the handcuffed billionaire was led away like a common criminal. News cameras flashed outside as reporters screamed questions he couldn't answer. His reputation, his fortune, his freedom, all destroyed by one phone call from a judge he thought was beneath him. If you're loving this epic takedown of the most arrogant lawyer in America, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because Judge Judy's revenge is just getting started. And what happens next will leave you speechless. Within 30 minutes of Wellington's arrest, the courtroom footage was everywhere. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation, and the video was spreading across the internet like wildfire. The hashtag $Judge Judy Destroys Lawyer exploded across Twitter, reaching 2.3 million tweets in the first hour. TikTok users were already creating remixes of Wellington's pathetic apology, setting his trembling voice to dramatic music. Instagram was flooded with memes of his terrified face as the handcuffs clicked shut. But this wasn't just social media entertainment. This was history being written in real time. CNN interrupted their regular programming with breaking news alerts. Fox News brought in legal experts to analyze the unprecedented takedown. MSNBC ran a special investigation into Wellington's firm and their decades of alleged corruption. International news outlets picked up the story, with headlines screaming across Europe, Asia, and beyond. The BBC called it the most spectacular judicial revenge in modern legal history. Law schools across America canceled classes so professors could dissect the moment with their students. Harvard Law held an emergency symposium on judicial authority and prosecutorial cooperation. Yale Law School created a new case study titled, When Arrogance Meets Justice, the Wellington Destruction. Legal blogs crashed from traffic as millions tried to understand how one phone call could destroy a legal empire so completely. First-year law students watched the video in stunned silence, learning that respect for the court wasn't just tradition, it was survival. The ripple effects were devastating and immediate. Wellington's firm, Wellington, Cross & Associates, saw their stock price crater by 89% in after-hours trading. Their biggest clients fled within hours, moving billions in accounts to rival firms. The firm's London office was raided by international authorities. Their Switzerland branch was frozen by banking regulators. Partners who had built their careers on the Wellington name were now toxic, unemployable, and facing their own investigations. But the real shock came when investigators started digging deeper. The $847 million Judge Judy had mentioned was just the beginning. Federal agents discovered a criminal network that stretched from Wall Street to Washington, D.C., from Silicon Valley to foreign governments. Wellington hadn't just been laundering money. He had been the financial architect for arms dealers, drug cartels, and terrorist organizations. The man who called Judge Judy a poor judge had been funding some of the world's most dangerous criminals. The FBI raids continued for weeks. Wellington's art collection, worth $47 million, was seized from his penthouse. His yacht was impounded in Monaco. His private jet was grounded in Switzerland. His children's trust funds were frozen pending investigation. His ex-wife filed for emergency custody, claiming she had no idea about his criminal activities. His country club revoked his membership. His alma mater removed his name from their donor wall. Inside federal prison, Wellington sat in an orange jumpsuit, his $50,000 Rolex replaced with plastic handcuffs. The man who once owned judges was now begging for a public defender. His cellmate was a drug dealer from Brooklyn who had never heard of hedge funds or offshore accounts. Wellington tried to explain that this was all a misunderstanding, that Judge Judy had somehow orchestrated his downfall. The drug dealer laughed. Man, you got played by a TV judge. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Meanwhile, Judge Judy continued her regular court schedule as if nothing had happened. When reporters asked her about the Wellington case, she simply smiled and said, "Next case." But legal insiders knew the truth. Judge Judy hadn't just destroyed one arrogant lawyer, she had sent a message to every attorney in America. Respect the court or face the consequences. The courthouse where it all happened became a pilgrimage site for law students and young attorneys. They came to see the bench where justice was served, where arrogance was punished, and where a poor judge proved that real power comes from integrity, not money. 6 months later, Marcus Wellington III was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, without the possibility of parole. The judge who sentenced him wasn't Judge Judy, it was a federal court in Manhattan. But the ghost of her phone call haunted every moment of his trial. His legal empire was gone, his fortune seized, his family destroyed. The man who once called Judge Judy a poor judge was now the poorest inmate in federal prison, working for 23 cents an hour in the prison laundry. But this story isn't really about Marcus Wellington. It's about something much more powerful. It's about the moment when arrogance meets justice, when privilege crashes into reality, and when someone who was underestimated reveals their true power. Judge Judy didn't just destroy one corrupt lawyer. She reminded the entire world that respect isn't given. It's earned. And disrespect comes with a price that money can't pay. The lesson here runs deeper than law or justice. It's about the danger of judging people by their appearance, their background, or their perceived status. Wellington saw a TV judge and assumed she was powerless. He saw someone from humble beginnings and thought she was beneath him. He confused fame with weakness, television with irrelevance. His arrogance blinded him to the truth that Judge Judy had spent decades building relationships, earning respect, and accumulating the kind of real power that doesn't come from money. It comes from integrity. Today, the Wellington case is taught in every major law school in America. Students learn about judicial respect, prosecutorial cooperation, and the consequences of professional arrogance. But more importantly, they learn that the legal system still works when good people refuse to be intimidated by wealth and corruption. Judge Judy's phone call didn't just destroy a criminal. It restored faith in justice itself. The courthouse where it all happened now has a plaque commemorating the moment. It reads, "In this courtroom, Justice Judy Schindlin demonstrated that true authority comes not from wealth or status, but from wisdom, courage, and an unwavering commitment to Truth. Thousands of visitors come every year to see the bench where a poor judge brought down a billionaire with nothing but a phone call and the courage to make it. Judge Judy herself rarely talks about the Wellington case, but when she does, her message is always the same. Respect is the foundation of everything. Without respect, we have nothing. With respect, we can move mountains. Those words are now carved above the entrance to 3 different law schools. A reminder to every future attorney that humility isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Wellington's story serves as a warning that echoes through every courthouse, every law firm, and every boardroom in America. No matter how much money you have, no matter how powerful you think you are, there's always someone who has earned real respect through real work. Judge Judy proved that day that you can buy lawyers, you can buy judges, you can even buy politicians, but you can't buy the kind of respect that comes from a lifetime of fighting for justice. The viral video of Wellington's arrest has been watched over 500 million times worldwide. But for those who understand what really happened that day, the view count doesn't matter. What matters is the lesson. Never underestimate someone who has earned their position through merit, courage, and decades of hard work. Judge Judy didn't need money or connections to destroy Marcus Wellington. She just needed to be exactly who she had always been, a judge who refuses to be intimidated by anyone. If this incredible story of justice, revenge, and the power of respect inspired you beyond words, don't just watch silently. Smash that like button so hard it breaks. Subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell. And comment below what part of Judge Judy's legendary takedown left you absolutely speechless. Join our membership family to unlock exclusive behind-the-scenes content and become part of a community that celebrates real justice over fake power. Share this video with everyone who needs to see what happens when arrogance meets its match. Because stories like this remind us that good still wins, justice still matters, and respect still rules the world.